Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GB99. I am back from Canada. I am back from my little vacation. You can tell the time has passed because I have facial hair now. I could not grow this in a single day. I mean, I can hardly grow anything at all. I don't look that good with facial hair, do I? But anyway, I am back from my vacation, and that means a couple of things. Firstly, daily videos are back. You can expect to see a daily video, every single day on our main YouTube channel, GB99, in the order of like league, non-league, league, non-league, so on and so forth. We're back to the daily content grind, which I'm very excited about. I'm also excited that I am back to streaming as well. My stream, which is on Twitch, by the way, some people don't know, about like a year ago, I went back to Twitch. I am back streaming on Twitch again, and I'm going to be streaming about 5 to 6 times every week, which I'm excited for. I don't know entirely like what time of day. I'm going to experiment with it a little bit, seeing if we can get some sort of schedule set in stone. But for the upcoming weeks, I might stream around, a couple of different time periods just to see when you guys are able to watch me the most. And I'll probably adjust my schedule based on your needs. I'll be streaming about 3 to 6 hours, I think, probably every week, five to 6 times a week. So not 3 to 6 hours total in the week. That would be a GB99 workload, wouldn't it? Anyway, though, we are back, and I'm excited to be back from this vacation and getting back to the work grind. This was just a bit of a personal vacation. You know, a lot of the time when I travel, I'm traveling to like go to league events and stuff. I don't really get much time where I'm just off, without any sort of other obligation. This was just a personal trip I took with a couple of friends, and it was the first time I had ever been to Canada. I know some of you guys were saying that I should do a vlog or something, but I'm not one of those YouTubers. I'm not one of those people that needs to like squeeze a piece of content out of every second of their lives. So I didn't feel like that was super appropriate, but one thing I thought could be pretty fun is let's go ahead, do a Canada review. I've reviewed silverware before. It should not be that difficult to review a country. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and gameplay stuff will return tomorrow. Anyway, though, so to kick things off, let's go ahead, talk about Canada, specifically Toronto. I forget if I mentioned already. You guys saw, this is the second time I'm recording this because my microphone was off. I forget if I mentioned, I went to Toronto, Canada, Toronto, Ontario, which was a very, very fun, overall, it was an incredibly fun trip. And the biggest thing you have to talk about, literally, when you're talking about Toronto, is the CN Tower. I don't know the actual height off the top of my head, but the CN Tower, at a certain point, I think, was the tallest building or tallest tower in the world. There's actually like distinctions I learned between like what the tallest building is, what the tallest tower is, what the tallest freestanding structure is between like architecture communities. And I don't really know, but so apologies if I get something wrong, but the CN Tower is, I think, the tallest tower in the Western Hemisphere still. And when it was built, the tallest tower in the world, it was built by the Canadian National Railroad Company, and it is really something else. If I'm being honest, I was kind of expecting the CN Tower to be like the Empire State Building. When you're a kid and you take a vacation in New York, you go into the Empire State Building, and you're like, oh, wow, cool, it's a big building. And then you go and you see way more interesting stuff in New York on Broadway or at the Met or something, right? I kind of expected the CN Tower to just be a tourist trap, sort of not all that impressive or cool thing. But it totally lived up to the hype. Like, it was actually a really cool experience because, like, the viewing deck, or the lowest viewing deck, there's a few different options for the different kinds of things you can experience at the tower, but the lowest viewing deck is only like 2/3 up the way of the tower. But even at that height, you're so high up that it feels like you're in an airplane. That's what it feels like. You are looking down at the city of Toronto, which is a huge city. I think it might even be like bigger than New York City. It's a gigantic city. I did not realize how big it was going to be. you're looking down on skyscrapers. I mean, it's really kind of incredible how high you are. It just feels like you're in a plane. I mean, it doesn't really feel like you're in a building that you just took an elevator up to get to the top, and that you're looking out the window of some structure. It feels like you're in the air and you're flying. That's how high up it is. And it has such beautiful scenery too, because you have Lake Ontario, a great lake on one side, and then you have the city of Toronto as well, that's kind of across the other. You can see really cool things in the distance, like Mississauga, which is a city that's fairly close to Toronto. That being able to like see it in the distance is just a kind of cool and exciting thing. But you also have like the trees, and Toronto seems like a fairly flat, or maybe it's not, but like the lower part of Canada where we were, it seemed like it was fairly flat. You didn't get to see mountains in the distance or anything, but you got to see, you know, trees and foliage and stuff at the less urban parts in the distance, which was all a really cool thing to see. I mean, it was a very cool experience that was much better than what I was expecting it to be. So that was one that was, I think, probably the first thing we did when we got there, which was a pretty cool, exciting thing. Give that an A+. Then the next thing that we did, the next touristy site that we saw was Casa Loma, which is a castle, which I don't know if this is actually true, because I know, like in Cincinnati, there's a castle that I've been to before, but I think the people there, at least, said it's the only real castle that's built in North America, maybe North and South America. It was built in like 1910 by some rich dude, some rich Canadian, and then like 10 years later, after living there, he went bankrupt and had to sell everything and move out. But it was a really cool experience, like seeing the castle and going across all the rooms and everything. I totally felt like a tourist. I even got the little thing where it's like, you know, it tells you, you know, press 1 to hear a description of what this room means, and then you listen to it. Like, it was a very touristy thing, but it was actually really cool too, and there was some cool art there. Every time I go anywhere, I try and see what art there is, and there was some actually really cool art that was hung in the castle. Although, I remember that someone was talking about how the people that lived in the castle used to have like an art collection that had like a Turner in it, which I really wanted to see, but I assume it's not actually at the castle anymore. But anyway, that was a really cool experience. But getting past the touristy stuff that makes me look like a pleb, Toronto was a very cool city, and it was really, I mean, it made me feel like, not proud of the city, but it made me feel like I can understand why someone might be proud to live in Toronto, which, you know, a lot of people take nationalism. It's not nationalism to be like, oh, yeah, I like my city. But a lot of people take that kind of stuff and say, oh, you know, it's dumb to be proud of where you live, because oftentimes you can't really control where you live, right? And there's not really a lot to be proud of. You didn't build the city, right? You're just one person in a million that's contributing to it, more than a million probably. And it's okay, you know, being proud of a city is kind of dumb. But Toronto, people in Toronto have like a deep love of their city. That might be a better way to describe it. Firstly, like, it is a great sports town. I don't know if I've been to a town or a city or a place that has been as proud of its sports teams as the people in Toronto are. You know, Cincinnati, we're ashamed of the Bengals and the Reds, and FC Cincinnati is not even that good at either. So, but that's, you know, even an extreme example. I've been to other places on the East Coast and West Coast. You know, LA might be a good comparison. If you go to LA, you don't hear people that are freaking out about the Rams. You don't see people walking down the street decked out in Chargers gear because they're so proud of the LA Chargers. There might be, you know, there's certainly love for the Dodgers and for the more successful sports organizations in Los Angeles, like the Lakers, right? But even with that being said, you don't see like the entire city. There's plenty of people that live in LA that don't care about sports, or who would much rather root for the team from the place that they moved from rather than root for a team based in LA. But Toronto, everybody loves sports. everybody loves the Maple Leafs. Everybody loves the Blue Jays. There was we were actually in the city the night that the Maple Leafs had their home opener, which was I kind of wanted to go to it. Tickets were crazy expensive, and we weren't able to do so. But we got like some Maple Leafs gear and watched the game on TV, and it was an incredible, like, everybody in the city was walking around in Maple Leafs jerseys and was like so excited for hockey. Canadians clearly love their hockey, but even the Blue Jays. I mean, as is my understanding, after doing some research, I'm kind of getting into hockey now. Thanks for that, Canada. Hockey is actually amazing. I totally have underrated it as a sport over the years. But anyway, as I was saying, yeah, so like I was doing getting into hockey, I'm trying to understand a little bit more about the history of various different teams. And as is my understanding, if I remember correctly, the Maple Leafs have not won the Stanley Cup since like 1968, but they're considered pretty good, like a top 3 team right now, along with like the Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And like, okay, I can understand people getting excited if your sport team is good, but the Blue Jays aren't really that good, right? The Blue Jays, I mean, they missed out on the MLB playoffs this year. I don't know if Toronto FC is any good. Maybe they are. I don't really pay attention to MLS as much as I pay attention to international soccer. But, I mean, the Blue Jays, you shouldn't, like, I don't know. People seem to really love the Blue Jays, even though they are not amazing, right? They have Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? It's Vladimir Guerrero, right? Ronald Acuna is on the Braves. And that's like a really crazy, exciting story. If any of you don't know, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his father used to play for the Montreal Expos, and he was born in Montreal. I think he maybe moved to America or lived in America at some period of time, but then he was drafted by the Blue Jays, and he's turned into this amazing player that's been fantastic. This season was his rookie debut. So he's, that's really cool, and there's exciting stories to follow and everything. But I mean, people really seem to love their teams in Toronto, which any city's going to love their team when they're winning. If you win the NBA Finals like the Toronto Raptors did, then there's going to be, posters and celebrations and everything all across the city. But Toronto seems like a great sports town is what I'm kind of driving at here. Another thing Toronto is great at is food. Oh my God. The best meal I have ever had in my life was in Toronto. If any of you live in Toronto or if you visit, you have to go to the Dirty Bird. It's like a chicken and waffles place, which I've never really understood that. I think that was invented in like Atlanta, and people in Atlanta are crazy. But chicken and waffles, I've never been a big fan of it, but we went to this chicken and waffles place, and I got this thing. I forget what it was. It might have been called like the Classic or the Heartstopper or something. It was like a sandwich where waffles were the bun, and then grilled or fried chicken was the chicken part, and then it had like coleslaw on it as well as some sort of sauce. And it was literally the best meal I have ever had in my life. I have never tasted something that was that good before. And I've tasted a lot of good food. I've traveled a lot. I know all the great food that there is in Cincinnati. I've experienced a lot of fantastic meals in my life. I'm not like a foodie. I don't take pictures of my food, but I go out of my way to eat good food. And I don't think I've ever eaten anything that is as good as that meal. That was just incredible and just so delicious. Another thing I ate that was incredible was there was some pizza place where everybody says this. Everybody says, oh, here we actually do legit Italian pizza. Like, oh no, this is the legit Italian pizza. People will say that about like $1 New York pizza. That, oh, deep dishes and legit, this is the real Italian pizza. But as is my understanding, this place that I went to, that I forget the name of it, they had actual, like, straight up from Naples Italian pizza, where it's like cooked in like 90 seconds in an oven that's burning at 900 degrees. I assume that's 900 degrees Fahrenheit, right? I think that's what they told us, 900 degrees. But like they said, this is how it's done in like Naples and in Italy, across Italy. This is legit, authentic Italian pizza. And I've never had a pizza that was that good. I've had plenty of pizza, and there's some places in America in particular, like in Cincinnati, there's some local pizza places where they make really good pizza, but it's not pizza, right? Like there's this one place in Cincinnati called La Rosa's, which it's a pretty popular chain, and they have really good, delicious pizza. But the reason the pizza is so delicious is because the sauce has like a ridiculous amount of sugar injected into it. The sauce is so sweet that you're kind of eating like candy pizza, and it's really good. It's fantastic, and it's like one of the best pizzas I've ever had from all the different kinds of pizzas I've tried, but it's not real pizza, right? Like, okay, come on. That's how a lot of pizza is. But this was possibly the best pizza I've ever had because, I mean, it was very clearly legit, real Italian pizza. And that was also incredible. Another thing that's worth mentioning, too, is Toronto, the people there and the wait staffs and the servers and everyone are very... I don't want to use the word polite because that's just the typical, oh, all Canadians are polite, haha. But they're so good about what they do, right? So, for instance, this one person that was with us, she has celiac disease. And for those of you who don't know, celiac disease is where you can't have gluten. You can't have wheat. You can't have, barley or rye or whatever, because the lining in your intestines will, like, freak out and try and kill you if it has gluten touch it. And the thing that's really awful about being celiac is when you have celiac disease, the biggest thing you have to worry about is cross-contamination because, you're going to know not to eat bread, but you have to be careful about stuff like if you eat French fries that were fried in a fryer that was just frying chicken a moment ago, like that's not, you will get sick from that and feel like you want to die. So that's something that excuse me. That's something that anyone who has celiac disease has had to go through the process of every single time they go out, trying to explain to someone that, hey, I have celiac disease. I can't have gluten, but that also means that I can't get cross-contaminated, please, because I don't want to feel like I'm dying in 30 minutes. And every single time that she explained that to a waitstaff, they immediately knew, like the entire waitstaff seems so allergy conscious. Like everybody understands that it's Canada's kind of like a better version of America, right? Like the best way to put this, everything I'm talking about here, Canada's just a better version of America. The people are nicer and they're also just more respectful. That's the way to put it. People are like, oh, Canadians are so polite, blah, blah, blah. But that does it a disservice. Everybody's polite everywhere. Or at least in America, everybody is incredibly polite in America. But the thing that you want to see in people is kindness and understanding and actually caring about other individuals. A waiter or a waitress in America might be polite to you just because you're supposed to be polite. That even if you run into an asshole, you're supposed to be polite to them. So, most people, if you're not in Boston or New York, most people that you bump into in America will be polite to you, right? But in Canada, most people are nice to you. Most people are understanding. They genuinely want to like make a connection with you and make sure that you're okay. Especially if they're in the service industry, if they're, serving, if they're working as a server or cook or whatever, people are very, very good about being incredibly kind and nice. And really, that's what Canada is. Canada is just more of America where it's better in a lot of ways. One thing that really surprised me was how multicultural Canada is. There are some elections that are coming up in Canada, and when we saw some signs for like various politicians and heard some stuff on the radio, and there was one thing I saw that kind of shocked me, where it was like 50% of people that live in Toronto, the first language that they spoke, that they grew up speaking, was not English. And that was something that really shocked me. I don't know if that's true of New York anymore. Like the typical, America is supposed to be the place that's like the land of immigrants, right? But obviously America has had like this weird political shift where people are like, no, immigrants are awful and evil. We don't want immigrants in our country, but let's not get political. I don't know if that's true in America anymore, though. Point being, right? Maybe in certain places like El Paso, like San Diego, like some places that are very close to the Mexican border in particular, because Mexico is probably the place that's sending the most immigrants to the United States right now. Maybe there's circumstances there where like 50% of people grew up speaking Spanish, or maybe even more, like right on the border at El Paso. But I mean, in Ontario, in Toronto, it was incredible to just walk down the street. Every time I walked down the street, I would hear at least 5 different languages being spoken. I would hear French, which makes sense. English and French are both national languages of Canada. So hearing French, okay, that made sense. But then I would hear German, and then I would hear Dutch, and then I would hear that there were an incredible number of different Asian immigrants, and I would hear all sorts of different Asian languages. I would hear, I would hear Cantonese. Actually, I don't know. I'm putting on airs. I don't know the difference between Cantonese and Mandarin, or like I can't tell the difference. But I heard some dialect of Chinese. I heard Japanese. I heard Korean. There were some obvious, like we went to an Indian restaurant. Obviously, they were speaking some sort of Indian language there. But like it was amazing just walking down the street and hearing so many different languages and seeing so many different people from all these different backgrounds where it was just an amazing and exciting experience, because that's something that America has totally lost personally. Well, I'm trying not to get political, but that's something that's really cool. And that's what I love about the internet, is being able to connect with people that are from all sorts of different regions in the world. You don't really get to do that in most places. And if you didn't grow up in 1910s New York, you didn't get to see all sorts of different immigrants with different cultures and different upbringings and speaking different languages on the street every day. But you get to see that in Toronto. That's a really cool thing that I've never, maybe other places are like that. Maybe downtown London, or especially in Europe, where I can imagine there's more people that are speaking different languages in different places, especially in touristy cities. That could certainly be something that I just haven't seen, because I haven't been to all sorts of different places myself. But that was just really cool and awesome. And I just want to mention that. Another thing that was cool is the city itself was very clean. Downtown Toronto is an amazing place to walk around as long as you don't get hit by a car. People are awful drivers in Toronto. I'm sorry, Toronto, if this is something that's like a sensitive issue for you, but there are only like 2 or 3 places. I listed them out on Twitter. Atlanta is worse in terms of having awful drivers. Charlotte, North Carolina, is worse about having awful drivers. And the entire state of Florida has worse driving. But like Toronto is one of the worst places I've seen in terms of drivers, where multiple times there were moments where a pedestrian was like about to get hit by a car because drivers just don't yield to pedestrians. And every single time we went through an intersection, there would be someone that was in the middle of the box because they tried to go through even though there wasn't room for them. And then the light changed, and now they're holding up traffic for the opposite side who has a green light, but they can't go because they're sitting in the middle of the box because they're just an idiot. Like, oh my God, the driving drove me insane. No pun intended. That was an awful, it just made me so angry at, what are you doing? You know how you see bad driving and you want to rip your hair out because you just hope that person, you hope they step on a Lego or that they cut their fingernails too short or something that gives them true agony. I experienced that a lot with a lot of the driving I saw. Luckily, I didn't get hit by a car, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, Toronto, it was just a great place. It really was like a better version of America. It was like more of America, but different. That's probably a better way to put it. There's a great joke that I think I heard this on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, where Jerry Seinfeld was talking to Norm Macdonald, who was Canadian, and he was recounting a joke from an old comedian that he knew. I forget his name. And he talked about how this comedian used to do a joke where he would say, Canada is kind of like America, or Canada is like if aliens were looking at America through a telescope from really far away and then trying to recreate it. And then they abducted someone and put them in that version of America. And if that person was walking around, they would think, oh, this is America. But then you would slowly start to realize something's not right. They put the milk in bags. They have all these weird stores and weird, not weird, but like different brands. You go to Tim Hortons instead of Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, right? And you would slowly realize, no, this is not America. That's kind of what it was. Canada really just felt like it was more of America, but then there were slight differences that made it a really cool experience that, in my opinion, it was probably better. I mean, I wouldn't want to live in Toronto, I think, because it's just so cold. Oh, my word. It was it was like 90 degrees, I think, in Cincinnati while I was gone. And it was like 50 degrees. This is Fahrenheit. It was 50 degrees in Toronto while I was there. So I can only imagine when it gets down to 0 degrees in Cincinnati, how cold is that in Toronto? I don't think I could live through a winter in Toronto, but it was a fantastic place to visit. I had such a great time there. I wish I got to see Niagara Falls because we were like a 2-hour car ride away, but, you know, 2-hour car ride with that driving, putting your life at risk, but it was still a very awesome and amazing experience, and I had a lot of fun. So, review, final grade for Canada, I give you guys an A, maybe an A+. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I curve the grades. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching this video, and I didn't realize how long this got. This turned into a pretty long review of Canada, so I hope I was able to hold your attention. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to everything. I'm really excited to be back. I'm excited to be making daily videos again. I'm excited to be doing streams again. Link in the description for all that stuff down below. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow in our next video. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.